In 2009, these collectors of vintage photographs, the Wilgeses here, figured out that this tiny little daguerreotype that they had had for over 30 years was a picture of neurology's most famous case study. They posted a scan of the picture on Flickr with the title One-Eyed Man with Harpoon. But before too long, people told them that it could be the only known picture of Phineas Gage, the railroad worker who survived the huge iron bar flying right on through his skull and brain, like a chopstick being pushed through an orange. So in September 1848, this good-looking fellow Phineas here was working on the railroad all the livelong day, and it was about this close to being a live-short day. As a blast foreman, he was using that very rod he's holding to pack explosives into the ground. He was looking over his shoulder about to speak to some workers behind him when he accidentally sparked the gunpowder in the hole, which caused an explosion. And that sent his 13-pound, 4-foot-long, iron, javelin-shaped tampon rod straight through his noggin. It went through his cheekbone, behind his left eye and frontal lobe, and came out the top of his skull. After passing right on through his head, it flew another 80 feet and spiked into the ground just like how javelins do. The explosion threw him back from the blast hole and he convulsed on the ground a little bit, but pretty soon he stood up and was conscious. This is the location they think it happened outside of Cavendish, Vermont. After a short stagecoach ride from about here into town, he was telling the doctor what had happened to him and he was like, "Doctor, here's enough business for you." The first physician he saw, Edward H. Williams, wrote, "I did not believe Mr. Gage at the time, but thought that he was deceived." But Mr. Gage persisted in saying that the bar went through his head. Mr. Gage got up and vomited, and the effort of vomiting pushed about half a teacup full of brain through the exit hole at the top of his skull, which fell onto the floor. Other than, I guess, actual brain bits falling out of his head and regurgitating blood he had swallowed, he seemed alright for the first day. But then he became decidedly delirious after a few days. He had got a fungal brain infection and fell into a semi-comatose state, only being able to speak monosyllables. They say you could see the fungus seeping out of his eye and brain hole. Before the incident, he was described as mild-mannered, soft-spoken, and genial. But he ended up getting fired from the railroad because after the incident, he was reportedly rude, profane, and violent. So he went back home to spend some time with his mom, who said that he seemed alright, except for he could only work a half a day and had some minor memory loss that could only be recognized by people who really knew him. For pretty much the rest of his life, he would keep the tampon rod, his constant companion, with him at all times. After a while with his mom, he went and displayed himself in the rod at P.T. Barnum's American Museum in New York. But then, interestingly, he was invited to be a long-distance stagecoach driver in Chile in 1852. And that's not an easy job at all. You have to be able to take fares, navigate, take care of the horses, and be personable enough to your passengers along the journey. So maybe his cognition improved at some point and he made a sort of social recovery. Or maybe his cognitive decline wasn't really as bad as the very few first-hand anecdotes suggest. In any case, his seizures started getting bad again, so he went to San Francisco to be with some family where he died in 1869. His skull and tamping rod are at the Warren Anatomical Museum at Harvard, and I definitely want to go see it if I can.